flower market.
Hello, hello, Rachel.
Hello,
Nice to
hello.
see you.
Nice to see you too. Yeah, I'm sitting here in my closet, my old house closet space. I don't know if you've ever noticed behind my shoulder. Can you see what that is? Oh, I just heard a meow.
Well, clearly Alma doesn't know. No, but I feel like
It's
you've told me about it before.
okay. No, I just like I'm surprised that no one that is the Muppets
Oh, really?
over my shoulder. Yeah, it's a really cool yeah, Muppet collage. And that just kind of tells you my kind of bonkers personality and also what we grew up with watching the Muppets, Pee Wee Herman, like some pretty off the wall sort of characters and things like that, which I think kind of formed us who we are. Well, obviously it formed us, but it formed us to be, I think, a little bit more creative and maybe, dare I say, more interesting sometimes than what people are able to watch these days.
Oh, you
A
mean
lot
like
more
compared to like,
censorship and
yeah.
so, which kind of actually does lead a segue into our guest today. So, Tracey Erin Smith is our guest on the podcast today, and she's developed a method called the SOULO method, but soul as in SOUL. So your deep soul inside your physical body, and basically allowing people to have this method that she's created where you can dig into your deep, personal, very unique stories, your individual stories as to who you are, and put them on stage, put them, in written word. She coaches people, I think, on even performing like talks that they have to do, things like that, but really finding that unique, like really what makes you tick internally that just drives your individuality and really allows that to shine, which we're living in a day and age where I feel like that's being squashed right now, very purposefully by certain people in government positions. We'll just leave it at that. And I think that if there's ever a time for this to really, I think, come out in such a beautiful and a way that's really needed is now. I don't know here if you have to say anything, want to add anything more about that.
Well, I mean, like people are going to be who they want to be, and there's nothing that can stop us as human beings from choosing to be the people that we're meant to be.
True, but people are trying.
Mhm.
That's the point. Like I think that, people are really trying to stop people from being who they truly are. And
Yeah.
it's disgusting. It's sad. It's people like Tracy that, like, thank God for people like her that really are open about wanting to drive people's passion to follow their story. And I also want to mention, so if any of you have watched the show, a reality show called Drag Heels, she was the host of Drag Heels. I don't know, is that coming on for another season or was it just like a 3 season?
I
Should ask her
haven't.
about that.
I could ask her about that for sure.
Yeah. So if you want to talk about Drag Heels or just explain what
Yeah, so Dracula's is
that
really
is.
it
Yeah.
Dracula's is a Canadian production from Border2Border Entertainment from Charlie
Hmm.
David, who was a guest that we had when we were podcasting more about a year and a bit ago, and also as a fellow queer Canadian. And Dracula tells the stories of other drag personas and artists in the Canadian. I'm assuming it's primarily Toronto community scene. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. This is so random. This is why we work like how we work and how we're so like don't filter things out. My husband, I'm working in the closet. My husband just texted me, I need a shirt and belt. So he needs to pop in here for something. Continue. Sorry, I was distracted.
No problem. So yeah, so the show profiles different people that are in the that basically I would describe it as it channels people's self-expression through the persona of drag, but doesn't necessarily speak just to the traditional forms of how drag may be perceived.
Yeah, it is true. Like, and it really does, it does, it's basically fully focused on drag, hence drag heels. But also, it's funny because when I first heard the show name, I was thinking HEAL.
Right.
So then I was thinking drag heels, like it heals, people from being themselves and from showcasing that and being an influence. But it's
Yeah.
actually HEELS,
Mhm.
which also makes sense. To me, there's almost like a double meaning there. And,
Yeah.
I'm sure Tracy could attest to that maybe
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so we're really stoked to have her on. She'll be on momentarily. And I think we also have something in common. I think she's Jewish as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be awesome. I mean, it's a nice little
Like,
thread, nonetheless. Well, yeah, for sure.
um,
It's a nice thread. The other thing I do want to share about drag heels is that we also had someone on our show twice, and their name is Alice Starr, and they're
yes,
apparently the first Canadian or first North American. I can't. My apologies.
Canadian. Yeah,
First Canadian drag wrestler, and that's their
yes,
primary form of expressing in drag, as opposed to like lip syncing or nightlife performance. From my understanding, like they channel their drag through mixing their professional background in wrestling. Uh,
yes.
so that's a really fascinating story about their life, and they talk about drag heels initially, and the time we chatted with them as well.
Yeah, I know exactly. And I kind of wanted to almost see what they were up to as well. But yeah,
Yeah,
Alice, so if you haven't seen that episode, Alice Starr, it's a little bit of an older episode, but it still has a lot of, it still resonates, I think, with what's going on today. And, Alice Starr was a castmate of Drag Heels. So that's just kind of cool how you can kind of combine the two with talking with Tracy today. So that's kind of neat. Yeah. Otherwise, how are you, friend? I know we talked a lot about, we don't usually do such a long guest intro, but
yeah, for
yeah,
sure. Yeah, I'm
let's do a
doing
little
okay.
check-in.
Yeah, no, I'm doing okay. I mean, I can't believe it's already near the end of February. We say this so on repeat of how time kind of moves and passes by, but it does. But at the same time, I don't know if you feel the same way. I feel that with the way that time passes, I feel like every day that passes by, I feel like I make good use of most of those days or weeks or months, even if time might feel it's passing fast.
Well,
I
that's
don't feel like
good.
I'm wasting my time.
Yeah, that's that's good.
So,
Um, Tracy did just pop on, but it's
perfect.
just I want to make one comment. It's so funny, like for some reason your camera keeps going like this.
I know.
Ooh, and I'm like,
I'm on an
ooh,
iPad right now, so
interesting. Like
I
I'm
think it's
ready
a
for
technical
ready for
close
my
up.
close up. Yeah.
Yeah. So for those that are listening, I'm on my partner's iPad, and we had Craig Syme on a few episodes ago. So if you're noticing a similar video camera, that's why you're seeing this. But normally I do record from my home on my laptop where the camera is fixed and not moving. But
Yeah.
for today, this is the perfect.
That's what we get. We'll just get dizzy by the end. It's all good.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
It's all good. So here comes Tracy. Do 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 do. I was almost thinking of like having a different intro song for every guest.
Oh, I would love that.
Yeah.
That'd be so
Hi.
great.
Oh, connecting. It's like I need to play like some sort of connection music. Do 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 do
Yeah,
do
yeah,
do
yeah.
do
Be
do do
sort of.
do 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 do.
There
Yeah.
she is.
It's also very profound, right? Like
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
connecting, and it takes time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Totally.
Oh
It
my
does.
goodness. I love
Uh,
finding the meaning in everything. I love it.
Right?
Tracy, it is so nice to meet you. And as we always tell our guests, we're recording now. So we're just
Okay,
kind of like jumping right into the deep end. It's kind of how
amazing.
we roll.
Great.
And we did a little intro to you before you
Yeah,
hopped on. I know you have no idea what we said, but I
no idea.
promise you there were all great things. And yeah, it's so nice to meet you. So those guys say, is Hero on this side? I was like,
He's below me,
he's below you. Okay, so this is Hero.
really
yes. Hello. Nice
Nice
to
to
meet
meet
you,
you.
Tracy. Welcome. So lovely to have you on our podcast. Thanks for coming on.
amazing to be here. I was listening to your most recent episode with Sean Antonio this morning.
Oh, phenomenal.
Oh,
That's so kind of you.
Oh yeah, and I was like, this is gonna be fun.
Oh, yeah.
He sounds like a wild and amazing human being.
Oh yeah, I he's definitely an inspirational human being. I haven't met him in person, neither of us have, but I can't wait for that to happen because I think I'm just gonna get my socks knocked off.
Totally.
Like literally. Yeah, he's a gem. He's an absolute gem. And he's just, I think he's like as real as a human can get, but also, and you know what? And it's a good segue just to being authentically you. He
Yeah.
gives no shits given. He doesn't apologize for anything. He's in your face. Yeah, that's true. Like it might be a little much for some people, but but his heart is always in the right place. So I think that's
Absolutely.
really what matters.
That's it's just like Rachel and I, and that's the thread that we have on our show. No matter how people deliver their authenticity, their individuality. And so I just want to dive in. Like, how are you doing today? Like, how's Tracy doing this morning?
Oh my gosh. Well,
Or this afternoon, because are you in?
yes, it's what time is it here? 12:18 noon.
Okay.
But it
Right.
feels like it's 8 o'clock. I've already had so much of a day.
Oh, wow.
There's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. I'm in Toronto right now, which is where I'm from. Um, but I wasn't living here at the moment, but I'm here because a family member is received a diagnosis. And
Oh,
yeah, so
I'm
there's
sorry.
just, thank you. There's, in addition to my book just came out and I'm working on three new plays. It's the light and the dark, and it's life. It's really life. And
Yeah.
it's what I help people excavate from their own past and present all the time.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's a good segue, maybe to just give us a little introduction into what you do. Well, we'll talk about what you did in order to get you to the place you are today, but what do you currently do today?
I currently do a bunch of things. Sort of top of mind is I help create new shows, new plays. I'm working on an amazing new musical. It's a one-man musical with a four-piece band. And
Oh,
talk about emotional and psychological health. It's the story of a young man who was raised by his father and mother. And then when he was 29, a friend said, "Hey, I'm going to order for this DNA test. Why don't you do it?" And
okay.
he was like, "Nah, nah." And then she wrote a week later and said, "Hey, it's on sale now." And he's like, "Okay, I'll do it." So, so he mentions to his mom, "Hey, I'm sending away for this 23andMe kit for DNA." And she's like, "Oh, why would you want to do that? I've heard they're not very accurate and yada yada."
Mm,
And the next day, his parents said, "Let's have a seat. We need to tell you something." And his father, who is traditionally quite direct, just simply said, "I'm not your biological father."
Oh,
And
oh,
and it's like, I mean, I'm working on that scene in the play, the musical right now. And the image I get is, I don't know the name of that movie, but it's a movie that takes place in space, and someone's oxygen cord gets detached from the mothership.
oh, yeah.
And then they're sort of free falling in space. That's what, when you find out half your DNA is not from where you thought it was from and you
Oh
don't
my
know where
goodness.
it's from. One of the lines he has in the show is he's like, "I was trying to outrun the monster, but I couldn't because the monster was me."
Wow.
oh wow, powerful, powerful.
Wow.
So my work always has to do with helping people excavate raw material from their lives, from their lived experience, and use what I call theatrical alchemy to transform that into something that is worthy of the stage. And when
Yeah.
I say worthy of the stage, I mean something that is going to help and heal you, but
Yes.
also bring a gift to the audience. We don't want to God forbid, leave the audience worse off than when they came in.
Right,
You know,
right.
And sometimes I say, everyone complains life doesn't come with an instruction manual. And I was like, it doesn't, maybe it does, because I think sometimes other people's stories can really be a brilliant instruction manual to life in terms of what to do and maybe what not to do.
Yes. And I think it does if you're willing to listen. Only if you're really willing to listen because, I think that and that's a learned skill and it's something that, I think that people also have to dig deep in order to because as soon as you're doing that, then you're making yourself vulnerable and that's a scary place to be, but that's the only way to grow, I think, being vulnerable. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, the vulnerability is also what connects other people to you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I wouldn't want to go see a one woman show about some gorgeous gal with no problems.
You wouldn't?
It's going to frustrate me. I'm going to want my money back. I might hate her a little.
I'm trying to think if there is a show like that. Like what? Oh my gosh. And for some reason, the first thing that came to my mind was like Legally Blonde. But I'm like, is that
Right.
even anyway?
Or The Simple Life.
Yeah.
It's like, I think we listen to stories and we go to the theater to learn about ourselves,
Yes.
really, because especially right now, so many people are struggling, whether it's with the global events or family stuff or career stuff or the rising prices.
Yeah.
And so we want to sit down and just hear how did other people survive it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and because the other thing is what I love about I'm going to call it a movement, what your movement method is, but it's really like digging deep to find that what makes you an individual. And the problem right now that we're having is the fact that that is being completely trying to be silenced and squashed. And we're living in a day and age where the movement that you've created is more important than ever before. So I don't know. I wonder if you can speak to that, if that's kind of something you've been feeling, I'm assuming.
I do really feel, let me get my teeny
Oh,
drop.
I didn't even hear anything. Look, it's a magical vanishing act.
I love it. I love it.
Oh, hello, puppy.
I'm not going to make any assumptions from your last name, Rachel, but this is Matza.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well that's another thing we can have a chat about because both Hero and I come from that.
Members of the tribe? Both?
We're both
yeah. I would say, is she okay? Oh my gosh, that's a whole other
Oh my God, talk about adding another layer to the current cake.
No, it's seriously
100%. Because actually, and I know I asked you a question, but I also something you had said something that actually resonated with me. You talked about running away from the monster, but the monster is actually inside of you. That is something that I pretty much dealt with my entire life. And what we both have kind of realized is with our own stories is really what I think drives some of that monster is intergenerational trauma and the Holocaust and us being grandchildren of Holocaust survivors. And that's a whole, other ball of wax. But that really, I just wanted to get that in there. That really resonated with me, what you said.
It's really important that you said that, Rachel. I mean, so one of the things I was brought on board to do with this new musical was just help it find some deeper layers to it.
Yeah.
And so I sat down with the playwright's parents, and he was born in Israel, the father.
Okay.
And I was like, tell me about the family history. So it turns out that his father and two uncles were on the Kinder transport from I believe it was Germany to England. And the two brothers passed away before they had children. So he's the only one that had a child.
Wow.
And this is biological family now we're talking about, though.
His biological family.
Okay.
Father.
Okay.
And so their relationship was always kind of fraught. And once I got that information, I was really able to understand the emotional dynamic that was going on between him and a son that had been born through his wife, biologically, but through a donor. Mm-hmm. And so he felt he had to pour all this cultural information into this little being so that he could carry on the tradition.
Wow.
Interesting. Okay.
So it all matters. I mean, it all matters. Once you start looking into your own history from when you were born to now, you can't really stop there because there are is that it might be very helpful to know about when you're trying to figure out your own shizzle, and sitting down with people if they're still alive and they're willing to talk about it. It's a puzzle, right? Our histories are all puzzles, so we're looking for pieces.
Mm-hmm.
100%.
But there's one thing that you also are saying, there's a lot of threading here. When you're talking about alchemy, and that's what my mind has been fixated on. You're talking about puzzles, you're talking about genealogy, you're talking about identity. And so when you talk about that, when it comes to what you're working on currently with this production, but also in terms of some forms of your own branding, with we know that we've read about the SOULO method and some of the other things that you're working on. I'm curious about more if you were to break it down in your own words, like what would be the alchemy behind like the philosophy of your approach to performance and individuality? Where did that come?
That is such a frigging great question, Hero. I've never been asked that before. I would say
that's Hero in a nutshell. He's
man,
he pulls it out, and he pulls it out of his butt like just so easily. It's not like he writes anything down. It's just like, psh, okay,
that's my specialty.
There we go. Yeah.
Oh my God, how fascinating, you two! I'm so impressed. Okay, so I would say it's the tools. And I've never thought of it this way, but the way that you alchemize a raw material into gold is the tools that you use.
Yep.
So this is the book, and there's, I don't know, I think hundreds of different exercises in here, plus excerpts from my own one-woman shows. And I really designed it that, like, because I can't be everywhere in the world. I wish I could, but that if you sat down with the book, Flying Solo, you could actually work through the process and have something to share at the end, which is really, but it's the tools. And I've accumulated, it's 23 years now since I created the method. I was an instructor at Toronto Metropolitan University.
Cool.
And I taught another course there for them called Awakening the Creative Spirit. And I handed out my own I was very, I don't know if I was creatively ambitious. So I handed out my own feedback forms, and I collected them, and I gave them to the artistic director of that part of the university. And she phoned me up, and she said something that changed my life. She said, Tracey, I've read the feedback forms. You're obviously very passionate about what you do. Pitch me any course and we'll run it.
Whoa.
Wow.
You know, some people dream of a Lamborghini,
yeah,
a beach house in California. For me to be, you know, it was like, I've never forgotten what this woman did for me.
Wow.
To give someone an opportunity in the field that they can't get enough of, like in their life's passion, is like giving them the key to the universe. Mm-hmm. And so I just sort of funneled down. I was like, okay, I'm going to throw everything I'm passionate about into a cauldron and like stir it up and create the best thing I could ever create. And that's how I came up with solo theater. And I've been doing it 23 years. I've worked with probably thousands of people now. I have tens of thousands of life stories. And I can't think of a better way to spend my time. It might not be for everyone, but that level of connection with other human beings, not as a therapist. I mean, I say the work is not therapy, but it can be very therapeutic.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a real goal to it. We're making something. Like at the end of the process, no matter who you are, whether you've done this 100 times or never, you're going to create at least a 10-minute mini one-person show, and you're going to perform it in front of friends, family, and strangers.
That's incredible. And that leads me to actually what we did see some of was drag heels. So that basically takes everything you're just talking about and putting it in. I mean, that opportunity must have been mind-blowingly amazing, because that's been how many seasons? 3?
Amazing. We've done
4 seasons. Okay.
Incredible.
Okay.
Wow.
And can you explain a little bit more about drag heels? I did kind of, before you popped on, I did talk about it a little bit. And what I sorry, I just kiboshed my own question from you. But what I love is, for me, it's kind of like a double meaning. Like when I first heard drag heels, I thought of HEALS.
Yes.
In my mind.
Charlie David. That's him. He came up with the.
Oh, of course.
You thought of the healing word.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I thought of. I hadn't seen it written out. I just heard it by verbally, someone telling me. And that's the first thing I thought. I'm like, that to me sounded amazing. But then when I heard it was HEEL, I'm like, well, that's also really fun. And that sounds amazing. Yeah. But it was kind of this double meaning.
Yes. And we spell it HEALS.
Oh my gosh. Yes,
Yeah,
you
that's
do.
what I
Oh my
thought.
gosh. Sorry. I totally just, yeah.
I mean, that's the pun.
Yes.
That's the pun,
I
and
love it.
also the expression "don't drag your heels," and
Yes,
also many drag queens wear high heels and all that.
Yeah,
of course.
But
bless
I'm
them.
so curious, Rachel, why your mind went to the healing spelling. Did you connect drag with healing in any way?
I think I did. Yeah. And I think that that's something. So this is not about me, but like I grew up in a musical theater family. So, I always theater to me and being exposed to all that to me was an expression of putting yourself out there and finding a way to be vulnerable, completely like literally leaving it all on the stage and have that as a healing process, right?
Mhm.
So when and I've been to many drag shows and I feel like that seems to be a place where somebody can really just be their authentic selves. And so to me, there's more of a psychological benefit or therapy, for lack of a better word, with stage than people realize. So it's more, I think it's more just my personal background, which is pretty unique to a lot of people, but that's
Yeah.
the first thing I thought of. So
I think
it,
you're right on the money. And I think having worked with drag artists now for the 4 seasons of the TV show,
yeah,
so many drag personas are an aspect of self that have been given permission to step into the light and speak their truth.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah,
yes,
Transformational for the performer and healing, and it's transformational to the audience to bear witness to someone who's so free.
yeah,
Like
yes,
I say courage is contagious.
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Very much so. When it comes to drag as a form of art and self-expression, as an extension of yourself, I mean, again, even though it's a very common statement from like RuPaul, like we're born naked, the rest is drag, but really like everything in life is very much an expansion of ourselves because it has to be pulled from somewhere or something or someone. So when you're looking at the expression of drag, same thing that Rachel said, it's been in my life for a long time. And as someone that is queer and that identifies in such a flamboyant way, I think it's really powerful that there are so many different ways that people can express gender or sexuality or artistic expression. And again, because there are other people on this production that are not just maybe a more conventional form of drag, right? It's a more as an engine for maybe stepping into areas in your life that maybe you feel you at that point need something to help support you, kind of give you that courage, right?
Absolutely. The first time I did this work with a drag queen, he told this story about growing up gay in a very small, very white suburb of Toronto. And he said one of the scenes in his solo piece that I helped him create was that he was sitting literally alone in his closet, deciding whether he could go on living. And then he said, and then he's over 6 feet tall. And then he said, and then this 6 foot glamazon reached out her hand to me and I took her hand and that's what saved his life. And it was his drag persona.
wow.
And so like instead of
gosh.
transitioning out of life into death, he rebirthed a part of himself that had the wisdom, beauty, and strength to help him go on living.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And then he put that on stage.
Then he put that on stage.
Wow.
That's brave.
Wow.
There's two, you don't have to be in drag to do exercises related to this. There's two that I've designed that are in the book. And I think I've done them both on drag heels, but I'm not sure. One of them is called the exaggerated self. I don't often get to talk about these in interviews because it's such a fascinating process. So I say, think about your personality, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and just write down like a page, like a mind map, a page. And then if depending on your chutzpah level, phone up like 3 or 5 friends and say, what are your 3 favorite things about me? And what are your 3 least favorite, or the shit that bugs you the most, or that kind of thing, right? And then look at this list, and then I have them come into class fully dressed as an exaggerated version of themselves. And I do what's called a hot seat. So in theater, a hot seat is when a person or a character is alone on stage and someone is interacting with them, asking them questions.
Okay. Yeah.
And this exercise has yielded tons of material for solo shows because it's in exaggerating your own mishigas, your own wackiness,
Yeah.
your true humanity comes out, and that others can watch and go, oh my God, I thought I was the only freak. I thought I was the
Mm.
only worry wart. I thought I was the only, that kind of thing. And the other exercise is called come as you aren't. So
Oh, cool.
I say, imagine the exact opposite of you walked in the door right now and sat in front of you. What would their background be, their financial status, their profession, their gender, their sexual orientation? And then I invite people to come to class as that character, and I interview that. I was working with this one group of older ladies, and I think she was maybe 71, and she decided to dress as a call girl. She called it a call girl. And
Yeah.
so she had amazing legs. She put on this short mini skirt, these long like Mardi Gras beads and everything. And she got on the TTC on the subway to come to class.
Oh, amazing.
I said, if you're feeling gutsy, travel from home to class dressed like that and notice how the world reacts to you.
Right.
Wow.
She sat down on the subway and she looked across, and the woman across from her was staring at her, and it was someone from her church choir.
Oh,
Whoa.
how did she react to that?
I think she just said, hi, I'm going
Yeah.
to class or something.
Yeah.
That's
Or
amazing.
you can blame Tracey.
Yeah. It's like, I'll give you her phone number. Your
Yes.
Hero, I think we need to do that one of our episodes. That's really cool. I like that.
Well,
you
I agree.
Is that?
Yeah, that's
I
really
agree.
neat.
Well, and also one thing that kind of is something I can pull from in terms of what you're saying. I remember for Halloween one year, I decided to dress in all my brother's clothing. And this is not the point, but for a reference point, like my brother passed from cancer like 20 years ago as of August. And so I had some of his old clothing, and I thought, I'm such a flamboyant dresser, like bright colors, tight, fashion labels. He wasn't really into appearance. So he had like very oversized, baggy, dark, black sports jerseys. I thought, I'm going to dress in like the opposite of me, which I look at my brother. So I dressed like him. And the high school I went to was an alternative mini school. So like 10, 11, 12 graduate, and half the people that were there were really not a juvenile hall, but kind of on their last way. And then you got me, which is, I wasn't from that living. And no one would really talk to me, right? No one knew how to approach me because they were obviously intimidated or couldn't relate to me. The moment I dressed up like that, all the people that I was intimidated of, or that were smokers, that were maybe convicts or whatever, they were all of a sudden talking to me like I was some, insecure, depressed, lost straight person, if you want to call it that. And then they would say to me, hey man, like, we like how you're dressing. You should dress like this more often. This is a lot more subdued, a lot more relatable.
Wow. You never told me that. Wow.
Yeah, it was an interesting experiment, but it just reminded me of that anecdote, and it kind of speaks to how people perceive you, even if that's not who you are. But
Yeah.
what you could relate to people differently based on how you present yourself.
Absolutely.
That is so, and that kind of leads me back to my original question a little bit ago about Tracey, like how you're feeling, like perhaps, although I know we don't live in the US, but a lot of that is being obviously bled into what's happening in Canada. It is very relevant, but just the fact that people, more specifically in the LGBTQ plus community, are being stamped down. They are being told like no. They are being silenced. They're trying to silence people. And you can't be an individual anymore. You have to be more, anyway, I guess my question is, do you feel like that is maybe an influence at all to, or is that something that you're noticing with people that you work with? Is something that you want to, is it something that you want to use your method to kind of help people more? Or I don't even, that's kind of like a strange non-question almost. But
It's Rachel, it's a brilliant question, and you guys are amazing.
Oh
So
my
really, so
verklempt.
this is what your question led me to. In a time where we can't say the world, where certain dominant forces are demanding erasure or
Yes.
silence or denial of someone's identity.
Yes.
Courageous spaces become more and more important and, dare I say and believe, life-saving. So whether it's like grabbing a book like mine or somebody else's and organizing a group, creating a space. I mean, the term safe space, I think, is a little overused. And when I create a safe space, what I'm really creating is a container where people can be brave. The whole point of safety is not to not say things. The whole point of the safety is to create a space where people can like feel confident and secure to be courageous and brave to speak the thing they're afraid of saying.
Yes.
Exactly.
And so those spaces are going to become more and more important. My partner, whose name is Sarah, we have an incredible place in Southwest Nova Scotia, an off-grid community. It's like a kibbutz, 15 cabins. It was a monastery for 25 years. And, you know, we bought it closer to when he got elected the first time as a place where family and friends could come in case things got really weird.
Oh my goodness.
And as it turns out, things just keep getting weirder.
Yes.
So I think spaces like that, and it doesn't have to be somewhere in the wilderness like ours. It can be a coffee shop, a basement, a synagogue, a community center.
Yeah.
Just a room where the group establishes some ground rules. Here's what we're going to talk about it. Here's how we're going to do it. Here's our confidentiality rule. Here's some high class snacks. And then
we gotta have those high class snacks.
Oh my God, especially where we come from, we know how to party with food. If there's no food, there's no people.
Exactly. It's not like a 14 karat cupcake. I don't know. Yeah, and I think, you know, providing an outlet, because secrets really can become very poisonous. Secrets are, you know, I'm working this musical I'm working on, you know, his parents got the secret from him because they thought they were doing the right thing. It's what the doctor told them to do 30 years ago. But a secret, and I've really been thinking about this deeply, a secret is like having a foreign object in your system. A secret is not something that's organic to that environment, whether you're talking about your body or your psyche. And so it can mutate and become a problem. Does that resonate with you guys?
Oh, completely.
Oh, heck yeah.
Completely. I mean, and also as a addition to that, it's like, speaking of acting like yes and, you know, I'm mildly autistic, late diagnosed. I'm ADHD, anxiety. I don't have any filter. I've had to learn how to have one, you know? So in terms of having secrets and being overly honest and candid and transparent to a fault and blunt, and sometimes without emotional tone, that's just how I was raised. So when people have stuff that's understandably their own need to keep suppressed or keep inside, I'm someone that naturally draws stuff out of people. And Rachel is very much like that too, if I could say so, you know? And so I find that in some ways it can be challenging as people like us, and probably you as well, to feel like we have to kind of go another step beyond sometimes to realize that piece first, and then also create those brave spaces for people to know that it's okay for them to release that, to come out. And a lot of people understandably are either not secure enough, or they don't have the awareness or the maybe the privilege in some ways, I like to think of it, to even explore that part of their deep psychology. And that's
the support network.
Sad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the time. I mean,
yeah.
Like if you're working 3 jobs, you have kids or ailing parents, or, you know, sometimes self comes last, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's so true.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. We've talked so much about the present. I really want to know, because I thought I read somewhere, and maybe this was a joke, probably was, I don't know if you said this, or someone said this about you, that you could have been a rabbi, but you didn't. You went into entertainment. Is that where did that come from?
Okay, let me tell you the story.
Okay, please.
So I studied theater for about 9 years full time. I went to Claude Watson High School for the Arts in Toronto.
Okay.
Then I did 3 years as a theater major at McGill, and then an incredible conservatory program in Vancouver called Studio 58.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
And then I graduated and I was, doing what you're supposed to do when you study theater for 9 years, like going to auditions and getting an agent and da da da. And
Hmm.
I found that life was just not for me. I was having a great summer doing Shakespeare at this amazing company, Bard on the Beach in
Yeah.
Vancouver.
Oh yeah. We're
Yeah.
from
We know
that's
we're
where
from
that's where we're
Vancouver,
from.
so we
Yeah.
know it.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and like it's so popular. It's really got to be one of the most successful theater companies in Canada.
Oh
And
yes.
so I'm on stage night after night with like 500 people. And I just had the thought, I was like, you know what? If I'm going to be in front of this many people, I'd like to have some control over what I'm saying.
Uh,
And so I helped myself and now still continue to help artists and human beings, but let's stick with artists for now, go from being an interpretive artist to a generative artist. So an interpretive artist would be an actor. That's someone who's
Yes.
interpreting the playwright's words,
mhm.
interpreting the director's vision. And I talk to people, and this is sometimes a revelation for actors, right? Because they've only ever done the other stuff, which is great. I mean, that's just more traditional.
Yeah.
But I'm like, you know what? You can create your own show. You can decide on what the message is and how the characters are going to bring it to life and what kind of impact you want to have and how nutty you want to get. And it's very freeing. And people walk differently after they've done
Yes.
something like that.
Yeah, kidding.
So where does the rabbi thing come into play?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Sorry, it's okay. Like I'm like where like this is I was just like where how huh?
Okay. So, excellent. You're being a very good tour guide right now. Sorry,
But we do. No, it's all I love listening to everything that you said.
I got off the bus and I just kept wandering, but now I'm
Yeah.
gonna get back to the bus.
Is the bus still running? Is it Friday night yet?
Yeah.
So then I said to myself, Rachel, I said, Tracey, you've been studying this for 9 years, whatever, and you are making your living as an actor. If you're gonna quit this, what the heck else are you gonna do? And then the answer came to me, I gotta go back home to Toronto and become a rabbi. I mean, as you do, right? As you do.
I don't know. That's a pretty like 180. That's a interesting like did you grow up very religious?
No.
No. Okay. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And then so I looked into it and I started taking some classes that would have set me up heading towards rabbinical school. And then I was like, I spoke with a friend who was in her first year of rabbinical school. And I'm not saying this is true for all rabbinical schools. I know it's not. But
Yeah.
she said to me that they said to her, you can come in with whatever ideas you want,
Yeah.
but you leave with ours. And I was
Ooh.
like, that is the opposite of what I'm about. So I don't
Yes.
think that's for me. So then I thought to myself, how can I take what I think are the most valuable aspects of organized religion
Yeah.
and the most powerful aspects of theater, throw them in bed together, watch them have a great time, pop out a kid, and make that kid my calling.
Love it.
That's what solo theater is. It's ritual from it has an aspect of ritual, which I take from organized religion. It's storytelling, which is actually a crossover from both religion and theater. It's communal. It's one person up there and the rest kind of watching. And it turns everybody into a minister. So I've always said, if I ever ran a congregation, I wouldn't want the period to look like this with the point at the top, with the clergy at the top.
Yeah.
I want to be the clergy at the bottom, getting everyone else to share their stories as the sermons.
Yes. Oh my goodness. I would go to that in a heartbeat. That is so cool.
Plus, we
That-
sing a lot of songs from musicals. That would be our song.
oh my gosh. Just hit my heart with an arrow there. That would be phenomenal. So
Yeah.
how did your upbringing lead did your upbringing whatever it looked like, did it at all lead to, I mean, I guess it all would with any of us. Like what parts of it, I guess, led to what you decided to do? Or were there parts of it that led you to not want to do certain things, so you did the opposite?
As a kid, I wanted to be three things. I wanted to be a triple threat on Broadway, a rabbi, and a cashier at Dominion. I don't know if you
You
remember.
could do all those things in one thing. You could be a triple. You could be a rabbi in a cash dominion as a triple threat, doing like shows as you're cashing people out. That's your next play.
Oh my God, I love it. So good. So I kind of combined them all in my first full length solo show, one person show, which I did get to play in New York a few times, off Broadway and off Broadway. And it was about this young woman studying to be a rabbi in New York, and that she comes from a long line of rabbis. She's going to be the first female rabbi in her family. But she gets kicked out of rabbinical school because she has a really crappy bedside manner. She's a brilliant scholar, but she's doing her practicum in a seniors home, a Jewish seniors home. And she comes to this workshop for them called Death, Deal with It. And
That's awesome.
Oh, that's so cool.
it doesn't go over very well. Everyone is crying. This guy has a heart attack. And finally, he has to sit down with the dean of the rabbinical school, and he said, listen, you're a brilliant scholar, but you have a terrible bedside manner, and I'm sorry we can't ordain you as a rabbi. We would really be doing a disservice. And so long story short, she's crying. She's wandering around Manhattan. She bumps into Jackie Mason. I don't know if you guys know who he is. An old, amazing famous Borscht Belt Jewish comedian who was a rabbi before he became a comedian.
Familiar sounding.
Wow.
Yeah.
Anyway, long story short, he walks her into this club. It's a strip club called the Tit for Tat.
Yes.
And he abandons her there. She meets the lead character, my character is Barbara Bomowitz. She meets a stripper there, an exotic dancer, who's like, oh my God, you were studying to be a rabbi. You need to teach me Kabbalah in case I meet Madonna, so I have something to talk to her about. So she's like, okay, I got nothing else to do. So she starts to teach her Kabbalah, and it doesn't work at first, and then it does. And then she's using the Bible stories to relate to some of the other exotic dancers. And she has this little Bible group going. And they say to her, look, you've done so much for us. Thank you. What can we do for you? And so they decide to teach her how to peel, how to strip. And Barbara Bomowitz becomes the world's first stripping rabbi. And her stage name and the name of the show is The Burning Bush.
That is unbelievable. You came up with all this? That's unbelievable. Why can't we not watch this now?
I think it would make a great feature film. I do.
Yes.
Yeah, my bush is burning right now.
Enough, hero. Okay. Anyway, that leads. Okay. I was gonna. Now I've lost my train of thought. Of course. Classic hero. What I was gonna say is it's interesting because I think that in Hollywood now, even some of that very aside. Oh my gosh, what did you call it? Not method acting. I said. Oh my gosh, my point is what came to mind was Baby Reindeer. Have you seen it on Netflix? Do you know what it's about?
I haven't. Tell me.
You have or haven't?
Haven't.
Okay, so it made me think that I think a bit of a trend happening in Hollywood that's kind of following in a way your method. And I hope that more of this actually starts to happen. But Richard Gadd, so basically he had a one-man show, and this is what the series ended up being about. He had a one-man show, very popular one for a while, I think is he Irish in Ireland? And it was called Baby Reindeer, and it's based on I won't even tell you because it's just shocking and emotional and crazy story of his personal life story of being a comedian and things that happened to him and actually having a real life stalker to unfortunately having some sexual harassment happening in his life. And I won't even get into, I want you to watch it. Like, it's just phenomenal. But what happened is I guess Hollywood's now like, okay, well, this is real. We can feel the authenticity. We want this now, I guess, for like, it's almost like I know reality TV has been so popular, but now it's almost like, okay, we want like a real story from a real person, and we're going to make that into fiction, but it's not fiction. So it's just reminds me a little bit of your method and what you're talking about. And a phenomenal story. Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to check it out. And the phrase that's coming to me, Rachel, as you're describing that, is reality art.
Yes.
Yeah, like
Yes.
new
Yes.
genre, like real, that's where the alchemy comes in. You take reality, you add some theatrical
Yes.
or TV tools to it, some artistry, and you get something that can be so specific to a unique individual story,
Yes.
but very universal because of all the details.
So that is exactly what this series is.
Amazing.
And it's really cool to see because it's super new. It's received a lot of awards over the past like year or so. Yeah, so I guess that kind of leads us. I can't believe what time it is already because I we could talk to you for hours and hours.
Yeah, thread
But
does not help either.
what's that?
Our thread doesn't help either.
So as we kind of close our discussion, what would you like to leave people with and how they can follow you, what they can do to support
Yes.
you?
Can I take 30 seconds just to teach tools so people
Yes,
okay.
please.
So think about a pivotal moment in your life, something that changed you or the direction of the course of your life. Set the timer for 10 minutes and play around with the following tools. Write the story in the present tense. It's called present tensing. Write it as if it's happening now, even though we all know it happened in the past. So a simple example would be, instead of saying, I sat down and waited for the bus, I sit down. I'm waiting for the bus. It makes it much more immediate. So that's one tool to play around with, present tense. Second one, use a rich description when you're writing. Try to include all of the five senses. What did you see, smell, taste, hear, touch? That helps to bring alive these things in the listener called mirror neurons or mirror cells. These are parts of the brain that get activated when we hear a great story that makes us feel like it's happening to us. Every great movie, every great television show, every great theater piece does that to the viewer. And then the final tool would be aware that no matter where you are always simultaneously in two environments. Right now, and with Zoom, it's three. It's a bit of a mind blip. But I'm in this room. There's two dogs, there's a desk, there's a plant outside of my skin. That's the outer environment. Then there's the inner environment inside of my skin. And you can report to the listener from the inner environment by using two things that go on in the inner environment. What would your guess be? What are the two things that are always sort of going on inside us?
Well, for me, it's my talk track. It's my thoughts.
Great. And what's the other one?
I would think the emotions.
Exactly.
Emotion.
Exactly. So we call them emotions, we call them feelings, because that's the word motion and feel. It's actually sensation. Every emotion or feeling starts as a sensation, a tightening in the jaw, butterflies in the stomach. So
Right.
use the description of the sensation, not the emotional word. Don't use happy, sad. It's not great writing.
Sort of like a tightening in my chest or
Exactly.
something like that.
Exactly. My heart sped up, my palms,
Right.
Yeah.
my eyes widened, anything like that.
Smart.
So that's my micro masterclass, my 1 minute masterclass. And to reach me, my email is Tracey, Tracey at SOULO, and I spell it SOULO because it's like solo theater, SOLO, but it's putting your soul on stage, soulo.ca. The website is soulo.ca, SOULO.ca. And the book is called Flying Solo, but spelled my way, SOULO. And it's available on Amazon and different bookstores. And oh, what a privilege.
So excited.
Thank
Oh, the
you
privilege
so
is
much for sharing with us.
ours. You're an incredible human being,
Yes,
Tracey.
absolutely.
And you're a light in the darkness of this world right now. So thank you. Keep doing what you're doing. And I look forward to, I wish that we lived with our guests that don't live in the Western hemisphere here of Canada. I always wish that we lived closer so we can come and see your musical too that's coming up.
Yes, it's called Our Little Secret.
Okay.
Hey.
And when does
in Montreal, Eagle.
Montreal, okay. And when?
Starting May 1st. And then there's a show before that, which we didn't get into, but it's about Kanye West.
Oh,
And
Lord.
it's a young actor of color and a young Jewish actor who've been best friends forever, and basically said, we've worshipped this guy since we were kids. What do we do now? And they use his music to help tell their own story. And we're
Oh,
doing it at the Seagull in Montreal and then the El Macombo in Toronto.
oh my gosh.
Wow. So folks, go check those out if you're in those cities because that, oh my gosh, what a treat.
And no matter where you are in the world, I run a monthly group. So we have members from all over, and I give writing prompts and we share, and it's very positive and cathartic and community oriented.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
So
Tracey,
cool.
thank you
so
so
much.
much for your time.
Thank you.
And we'll keep in touch, please, and all the best.
Absolutely. Keep in touch. Take good care of each other. You guys are awesome.
Amazing.
Thanks,
Thank
Tracey.
you. We'll talk to you
all the
soon.
best.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks.